One of the more regrettable and disgusting characters of the Trump administration is his press secretary, Karoline Leavitt. Karoline Leavitt makes it a point to wear almost a novelty-sized, oversized cross when she appears in public. And she is one of the most ardent defenders of any old crazy idea that Donald Trump has. And what she did yesterday is pull out an old trick from Kayleigh McEnany's days as Trump's press secretary and from Trump's own days, which is you hold up papers. You just hold up papers. And growing scrutiny is taking place. Not enough, but it's growing. Growing scrutiny is taking place over Elon Musk's ideas about we're cutting this and we're cutting that. And what's fraud, by the way? And what Karoline Leavitt does here is really, we have to analyze this for its propaganda value. One thing she does is she waves around papers. And of course, we never know what's in the papers, but because she has them, that's meant as a tool of propaganda. I don't know, she's waving them around. There must be stuff there. But more importantly, while claiming that they have found fraud everywhere in the government, what she really means is there was money being spent on things that Trump doesn't like. Now, there's a difference between Trump's priorities are not aligned with certain initiatives, and there is fraud going on. Fraud is something very specific. And as evidence, what does Karoline Leavitt have? Well, she has papers that she waves around. Check this out. This would make North Korean anchors blush at its propaganda value.
As for the actual receipts, we are happy to provide them, and I actually brought some today because all of you know I love to bring the receipts. We have contracts upon contracts that we can send and provide this information to you. Let me be very clear. We are not trying to hide anything. We have been incredibly transparent and we will continue to be. These are screenshots of contracts that they found across our government. This is a DEI contract, $36,000 for U.S. citizenship and immigration services.
By the way, $36,000. I mean, it's not even a drop in the bucket. It's not even morning dew on the bucket. It's nothing.
That is against the president's policies and his America First agenda. This is a 3.4.
Now notice that being against Trump's agenda and being fraud, not exactly the same thing.
$1 million contract, a Council for Inclusive Innovation at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, Department of Commerce, another DEI contract that Doge identified. I can continue to go through these. Oh, I love this one. $57,000 for climate change in Sri Lanka. What is this doing to continue the interests of the American people? Absolutely nothing.
You know, what's sort of sad and tragic about that one is, first of all, it's almost no money. Like, would you say $57,000? What can you even do? The issue of climate change is so much bigger than $57,000. But the idea of Sri Lanka, why? It goes to this idea that they don't understand that there are issues that don't respect imaginary lines on a map. And we have to deal with some of these issues globally. If anything, it would be like, why are we even bothering with $57,000? We need to do more.
These are the line items across the federal government that Doge is identifying daily. They're moving very fast. There's a lot of paper that we can show you, but we're happy to do it. This administration has been more than transparent about what Doge is doing. And here's one of their tweets that they posted about the mine.
She's got a printed excretion.
I believe this is in Pennsylvania, where the federal employee retirement system is being processed. Did anybody know this was even happening in our country before Elon Musk talked about it in the Oval Office yesterday? A lot of Americans didn't. So we are providing transparency and accessibility on a daily basis when it comes to Doge. And I also have a Doge daily report, if anybody would like it, on all of the things that they are identifying and finding. We're happy to provide this information to you. We're talking about it every single day.
Are all those things you just mentioned fraud, or are they waste, or are they just contrary to the president's policies?
I would argue that all of these things are fraudulent, they are wasteful, and they are an abuse of the American taxpayer's dollar.
You know, it would be nice as a starting point for her to define fraud, you know, because she has all of these papers, but fraud is an intentional act of deception that results in an unauthorized benefit. If you don't care about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but there's money allocated for a diversity, equity, and inclusion program, and that is carried out, that's not fraud. That's simply a program you don't agree with. That's all it is. This is so humiliating that it's scary. The topic of where will Palestinians be moved by Trump came up. Here's what Karoline Leavitt had to say.
The king would much prefer that the Palestinians stay in place, with the additional land to be used for new development, which would greatly create jobs at levels never seen before. But the president feels it would be much better and more majestic if these Palestinians could be moved to safer areas. I would just add to that the president remains wholeheartedly committed to seeing peace in the Middle East. And our Arab partners in the region have been tasked with coming up with a peace plan to present to the president. That is ongoing. King Abdullah mentioned that yesterday.
The peace plan is 2 weeks away, just like Trump's healthcare plan. And then finally, Karoline Leavitt is asked about, there's this crazy thing where an Associated Press reporter referred to the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of Mexico. Trump wants it called the Gulf of America. And so they kicked that reporter out. Caitlin Collins brings this up and goes, isn't that just like retribution here? And here is how Karoline Leavitt explained what they did.
It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. And there are hundreds of outlets on this campus, many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the President questions. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office, and you all have credentials to be here, including the Associated Press, who is in this briefing room today.
But isn't it retaliatory in nature is the argument, because the reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is. The Secretary of Interior has made that the official designation in the geographical identification name server. And Apple has recognized that. Google has recognized that. Pretty much every other outlet in this room has recognized that body of water as the Gulf of America. And it's very important to this administration that we get that right.
So there you go. That's why the Associated Press reporter was kicked out. More honest than Kayleigh McEnany? I don't think so. More of a loyalist than Kayleigh McEnany? No, I don't think so. It's just Kayleigh McEnany 2.0. Many of us have struggled with sleep at one point or another. A sleep aid many turn to is melatonin because it's a non-pharmaceutical remedy clinically proven to work without the side effects you might get with antihistamines or prescription meds. My favorite way to take melatonin is with the Dream Hot Cocoa Powder from our sponsor, Beam. It works. When you mix Dream Powder into hot water or milk for a delicious mug of cocoa, half an hour later, blissfully sleeping. No sugar added, it's naturally sweetened, and it comes in delicious flavors. My favorite is cinnamon cocoa, but vanilla chai is great too. You can get better sleep with melatonin, proven to help you fall asleep and stay asleep longer. Feeling rested makes the next day so much better. Keep Dream Powder nearby to soothe you to sleep when you need it. Get 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman. The link is in the description.